Yeah, I'm sorry. So Linux is an operating system. Why Linux? We are having different types of operating systems in the market. So different types of operating systems are nothing but Windows operating system, Mac OS operating system. We are having in such a way. But why we are using Linux operating system as our operating system? So here, when coming to Windows, everyone must be having idea on Windows. Why Windows? So Windows is a GUI operating system. What is GUI? GUI is graphical user interface. So what do we mean by graphical user interface here? So graphical user interface is nothing but which we can see on the screen, which we can operate through the screen. If we want to create any folder, or if we want to go inside of any folder, if we want to like do whatever we want, we can see through the screen and we can operate it. So that is nothing but GUI, graphical user interface. So now coming to CLI. What is CLI? CLI is nothing but command line interface. So now what do we mean by command line interface here? So command line interface is nothing but which can be operated through the commands. So in the same way, which you operate through graphical user interface, you can operate through the command line interface as well. If you want to create any folder, go inside of any folder, create any file, write any text, or create the connectivity, check the connectivity, whatever we want, we can do the same things through the command line interface as well. So now this command line interface is Linux operating system. So basically interfaces are of two types. Now you should be having an idea of what are interfaces here. So in Linux, we will be having the graphical user interface as well, but not for all operating systems. We'll be having the depth idea on that going forward. Linux. Mostly Linux is used on CLI, command line interface. In Linux, everything will be operated through the commands. In Linux, everything will be done through the commands. Whatever we want. If you want to check the connectivity, if you want to check the network, if you want to check whatever we want, we will be doing everything with the command line interface.
వాళ్ళకి ఫోన్ చేస్తే వాళ్ళు అక్కడి నుంచి యాక్సెస్ చేస్తారు లేదన్నా
I'm sorry to mute you all because there will be disturbance to others also. So till here, any doubts? Are we clear on this? I hope we are clear. Okay then. So now coming to what is operating system? Operating system is nothing but it's a communication between software to hardware. So you are having a laptop, for example. The keyboard on the laptop is considered as the hardware. So your screen, inside the screen, there is something visible on it. So that will be considered as the software. So when you are typing something on the keyboard and the same is visible on the screen. So how is this possible between the keyboard and inside the screen visibility? So these two will be having the communication through an operating system. So operating system is nothing but it's a communication between software and hardware. And these operating systems are of two types. One is GUI and another one is CLI. So GUI is graphical user interface, CLI is command line interface. So now why we are using Linux and what is Linux here? Linux is a free open source operating system. Why we are saying Linux as free open source here? Because like previously, when we go into the past, like during 1990s, there were no large number of operating systems used in the market. Most of the operating systems used are Unix operating systems. Unix is also a command line interface and graphical user interface friendly operating system, but it is something different that can be used in a way. So a person called Linus Torvalds found that Unix is having some bugs in it, which contains a lot of bugs. So he tried to communicate with the Unix developers to ask them to change those bugs or to rectify those bugs. But as we know that once if any person is successful, he will not look into the other people. In the same way, when someone is trying to say them in a good way, they are not listening. Obviously, like who are you to tell us? In the same way, the follow. So what Linus Torvalds did is, so Linus Torvalds understood that this will not work. So he introduced Linux. In 1991. And at the time of 1990s, if anyone wants to operate like computer, like operating system, that's of very costly. The Unix operating system we should buy in a huge amount. That's very costly. Only like in universities or in big companies, it is available. So the reason why Linus Torvalds made this Linux and he kept it as free open source. Anyone can install it, anyone can use it, anyone can operate on it. So this is the story behind of Linux here. I'm stopping here. If you are having any doubts, please let me know on this.
चार कैरेट, एक टमाटर, एक पुदीना कट्टा, एक टमाटर, एक है ना.
Sorry, Javier, I'm meeting you. Yeah. So we are good. So this is the basic introduction to our Linux here. So now after this, so in Linux operating system, what are the things we are going to use? What is kernel? How kernel is operated here? What is the main reason of kernel? And then coming to the commands, how are the commands operated? How we can operate Linux here? We will be get to knowing it each and everything in going forward classes. So this is the basic introduction to Linux here. So now coming to our second topic, AWS. What is AWS here? So when we ask what is AWS, everyone will say Amazon Web Services. But as cloud software. But what is cloud here? Why we are calling cloud to it? So when we are using this, this Amazon Web Services contains a number of services in one single platform. So what are all these number of services and why we are using in this way? So previously, when there is no existence of cloud in the market, whenever anyone want to develop an application, like write the code for an application, I'm just giving an example. So whenever, if anyone wants to develop an application, he needs to buy, to develop an application, there should be some CPU, there should be some RAM, there should be some memory, everything needed. So he will be buying each and everything through the market. So he will be buying the CPU, he will be buying the RAM, he will be buying the memory, each and everything. But that is of manual, that is of physical. He will be bringing the CPUs, he will be bringing the RAM, he will be bringing the memory in a physical way. So for example, he just estimates to develop an application, he needs the CPU size of like 8 CPUs he needed, and then he needs the RAM of like 64 GB RAM he needed, and he needs the memory of 1 TB. He estimates it, he goes to the market and he buys it in a physical way. Now when he bought it, he started to develop the application, but he found the application does not require 8 CPU. He found that, so he estimated to have the 8 CPU. He estimated to have the 64 GB RAM. He estimated to have the 1 TB memory. But when he bought and when he started to develop the application, he found 8 CPU is not required, only 4 CPU is required, and 64 is not required for the RAM, only 32 GB is required for RAM, and no need of 1 TB memory. 512 is enough for memory. He found that. Now, the rest all are wastage for him. If he want to return the rest, whether the seller can buy it back or whether he can return it back. No. So there is no option to return or to make an exchange of those things. So the rest all are wastage to him and waste of money as well. So to overcome these all things, what a cloud platform did is, so you will be paying what you will use in a simple way. So you will be paying what you will use. If you are using 4 GB of RAM, you will be paying only for 4 GB of RAM. And there is no requirement of taking all these things in a physical way. Everything will be, you can do it in a virtual way. If you need CPU, you will get the CPU in a virtual way. If you need RAM or memory, you will get the RAM or memory in a virtual way. No need of taking it in a physical way. Buying it in a huge number of parts, everything not required. You can do everything in a physical way. By just sitting in front of the computer or laptop, you can just open Amazon Web Services, you can go to service, you can just create. So in this way, cloud has been created to make user friendly. Whatever you need, you can take it from the cloud. You can operate it. So I'm stopping here. If you are having any doubts, please let me know on this. This is just an example. I'm not saying entire cloud is in this way. This is just one service example I have given. I hope we are clear on this. So now coming to cloud platform. So Amazon Web Services is one of the cloud platform, like leading cloud platform in the market. So in Amazon Web Services, we can find more than 200 plus services. In Amazon Web Services, we can find more than 200 plus services. So here each service will be defined for each purpose. Let me just try to show you the Amazon Web Services. Give me a moment, guys. Let me just show you that Amazon Web Services as well.
ఈ ఆఫీస్ ల్యాప్టాప్ అని పెట్టుకున్నాను పిఓఐ సబ్మిషన్ చేసుకోవాలి
Oh,
Sojanya, your voice is.
audible.
Can you go on mute, please?
ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ ಎಲ್ಲ ತೆಲ್ಲ
Sojanya, Soundarya, not Sojanya. Soundarya, your voice is audible. Can you go on mute? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let me know once if you can see my screen. I hope you all should be good with my screen as of now. So these are all the services here. You can see different types of services will be used by the different types of users. So there are 200 plus services in Amazon Web Services, cloud platform. So as you can see, there are analytics related services, application integration services, AR and VR, and developer tools like developer related services, database related services, networking related services, IoT. So if you are students from CSE, like BTech computer science students, you should be having an idea on IoT as well, Internet of Things. And there are some services related to machine learning, robotics, storage related services. So in this way, different types of services are there. So there is no requirement of learning each and every service. Okay, there are more than 200 plus services. So there is no requirement of learning all the services. So we are going to learn the services which are related to our field. So we are going to have DevOps. So what are the services related with our DevOps? We'll be having those services in our bucket. Okay. So in this way, cloud platform consists of different types of services in it. So which are user friendly. So whoever needs to have the service required, he will be using that service, he will be learning that service. So everything will be upgrading day by day. So previously when AWS was started, there were only 90 or 80 services. Now till date, there are more than 200 plus services in the market for AWS. So the requirement will be increasing. In the same way, the services will also be increasing. So these are all different types of services types. So under these services, you can find different types of services again. So these are all things we'll be looking going forward. So this is just an example for AWS. I hope we are clear on this. If any doubts, please let me know on AWS part. Okay. Shall we move forward to DevOps then? Next topic. Okay. I hope we are good with Linux and AWS. So now going forward to DevOps. So what is DevOps? Okay, Siddheshwar, that's a good line. Thank you. I'm not much familiar with Zoom actually. I'm really sorry for this interruptions between this Zoom. Okay, then we'll continue with the DevOps here. So what is DevOps here? Why DevOps came into existence into the market? So here, when you see in the name itself, you can see two different names. One is a dev and another one is ops. In the name itself, you can find O as capital, which represents two different words here. One is a dev and another one is ops here. So what is a dev here? Dev is nothing but developers. And ops is nothing but operations team. Why we are having two different things in one single word? So before this DevOps came into existence, how the market was like, everything will be done in a SQL way. So whenever a client comes and he gives a requirement to create an application for him in this way. So first the application will be started through the architect. Architect used to design the application, what are all needed to create, to develop that application, like which database is needed, which code is needed, which platform is needed. Everything will be designed through the architect. Once the architect is finished his designing, the next task will be given to the developer to start writing the code to develop the application. Once the developer writes the code, he sends the code to the operations. This operations team is responsible to maintain the network, to contain the database with them, to have the code, and these operations will be deploying the code in a platform. Once the operations deploy the code into the platform, they will ask testing team to test the code. They will ask testing team to test the code. So once the testing team done with the code, if there are any bugs or if there are any issues, if everything goes fine, that's good. Nothing to worry. If there are any issues or if there are any bugs, again this testing team will send back the code to the developer. Again the developer needs to rectify the code. Once the developer rectify the code, again the code will be sent to the operations team to deploy into the platform. Again the testing team will do the testing. So in this way, everything will be done in a SQL way. Once the testing team approves that everything is fine, then the code will be given to the client. So this giving to the client is called as production or release. Generally, if you are having any friends or any family members, if they are saying they are working on weekends for the production or releases, this is called production or release, to deploy the code in a client platform, like delivering the code to the client, delivering the application to the client. So previously, when DevOps was not into existence, this is the way everyone followed in a SQL way. Until the architect designs the code, everyone needs to be waiting for the architect. Again, when the architect has done with his job, the developer is writing the code. Till the developer write the code, again everyone needs to be wait for the developers. Again, the developer has written the code. Now operations team is working to deploy the code into a platform. Again, everyone needs to wait for him. So in this way, this is going in a SQL way, which creates a lot of time waste and which creates a lot of money waste as well. So to avoid all these things, DevOps came into existence, and this DevOps made everything in a parallel way. Until the architect designs the application, the developer and operations will be start on their prerequisite works, which are required to develop the application, to deploy the application. So the developers will be preparing with the code bases or the languages that needs to be done through this coding, and the operations team will start working on the servers and databases and like each and everything, networking, until the architect designs the application. So in this way, the developer writes the code and he will keep the code in a common place where the operations team will take the code from the common place and deploy into the server. And once the deployment is done, then the testing team will start testing on it in a parallel way. Again, the developer will change the code, the operations will deploy the code in a parallel way. So everything will be having in a parallel way. So this reduces a lot of time, and this reduces the waste of money as well. And we will be delivering the application to the client as soon as possible. So this is the simplest way of simplest definition of what is DevOps. And here in DevOps, we will be using different tools. If you can observe here, I am mentioning some words here at the end of each and everything. CMDS. So what is CMDS here? So in Linux, we use commands. In Linux, we use commands. In AWS, we use services. In DevOps, we use tools. Each thing is having different usage. So we cannot say Linux services. We need to say Linux commands. We cannot say AWS tools. We need to say AWS services. We cannot say DevOps commands. We need to say DevOps tools. So it should be pronounced in a correct way. So I'm mentioning these all things here. So I'm stopping here. Please let me know if you are having any doubts on this.
Sir, your voice is breaking. Can you please explain once again?
Which part do you want me to explain once again? Which part? The DevOps?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Sir, actually, I joined a little bit late. So can you please overlook all the parts in a short?
Sure, Tushar. So, just an overview again. Linux. So, what is Linux here? Linux is an operating
one more
system.
thing, please introduce the tools of DevOps.
Sure.
What are the tools you are going to use?
Sure. So, what is Linux here? Linux is a operating system. Again, what is operating system? Operating system is nothing but a communication between a software and a hardware. So when you are typing something on the keyboard and that needs to be printed on your screen, there should be a communication between the keyboard and the screen. This communication is nothing but the operating system. So there are different types of operating system in the market. So like Windows, Mac OS, Linux, there are different types of operating system. Each operating system will be having different interfaces. What are the different interfaces used? So there are two types of user interfaces. One is a graphical user interface. You need to go on mute. Yeah. So there are different types of interfaces. One is GUI and another one is CLI. So what is GUI? GUI is graphical user interface. Graphical user interface is nothing but which we can see on the screen and which we can operate through the screen. If you want to create any folder, you can just go to the screen and right click on it and new, then you can create the new folder. This is what graphical user interface means, which you can see on the screen and which you can operate it. When coming to CLI, CLI is command line interface. Whatever you can do through GUI, you can do the same through CLI as well. If you are using by seeing the screen, you can do the same by typing the commands as well. To create a folder, you can just type a command, the folder will be created. To go inside it, you can type a command, you can go inside it. To create a notepad or to write a text, anything can be done by CLI in the same way. So here Linux will be having the CLI as it interface. I'm not saying Linux is not having a graphical user interface. Again, in Linux, we are having different types of operating systems. It's not like Windows. Windows means it's only one single operating system. Only the versions will be different. Windows 10, Windows 7 in the same, in this way. but in Linux, we'll be having different types of operating systems. There are different options. What are all these options and how all these operating systems came into existence? Again, from the Linux, we'll see in the future classes. So this is all about Linux. And while Linux here, who has introduced it? Linus Torvalds, a person, introduced Linux in 1991. Why he has introduced it, we'll see in the future classes in a depth way. And we learn Linux commands here. When coming to AWS, AWS is Amazon Web Services, which is a cloud platform. Why we are calling Amazon Web Services or AWS in a cloud platform? What actually is a cloud platform here? So cloud platform is a platform which contains different services used in a virtual way by different types of users in a simple definition. So Amazon Web Services is a platform where different users can use the services in a virtual way. There is no requirement of coming to a shop, buying all the things in a physical way, carrying on them and taking them to home. Not required all these things. By just sitting in front of the laptop or system, you can just go to log into Amazon Web Services. You can take the service whichever you want and you can operate it in a virtual way. This is what a cloud platform means. And in Amazon Web Services, we are having more than 200 plus services in it, and each service can be used in a different way. There are different types of services like developer tools are there, server related services, networking related services, storage related services, database related services, IoT, robotics, like different types of services are there. Everyone does not know all the services. Whichever the service required in their field, they will be using only those type of services in them. So in this way, Amazon Web Services will be having different types of services with them. So going forward classes, we'll be looking into the services that are related to our field, that are related to DevOps, that are used in the DevOps. Now coming to DevOps, what is DevOps here? So in the name itself, you can see two different names here, Dev and Ops. So the O capital represents two different names. What is a Dev and what is Ops here? Dev is nothing but developer team, Ops is nothing but operations team here. So why two different teams are working in a single DevOps? So before this DevOps came into existence, this was the thing that happened. Everything will be happen in a sequel. Like whenever the client comes and he has a requirement to develop an application, the architect will design the application, the developer will write the code, the operations will deploy the code, the testing will test the code. If everything goes well and good, then only the application will be delivered to the client. So these are all will be done in a sequel way. And this takes a lot of time and waste of money as well. Like how long the time will be extended, that long the money will also be wasted. So to reduce all these things, this DevOps came into existence and everything will be done in a parallel way. And we use different types of DevOps tools here. We use Git, we use GitHub, we use Maven, we use Docker, we use Jenkins, we use Ansible. So these are all the tools that are used in the DevOps. So these are all like basic tools. So everything will be having a basic foundation. So these are all will be the foundation tools to your DevOps. Upon these tools, again, there will be different types of tools used by different types of companies, organizations. You will have a clear-cut idea on that in the future classes. This is the basic introduction to DevOps.